sympathy and charity for for a person that tried to give us a Donald Trump autocracy and has now defected to Russia, where they are invading a foreign country? No sympathy and charity for Tara Reade.
These
I hope Tara Reade goes to Siberia.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to The Next Level. I'm JVL here with my two best friends, Sarah Longwell and Tim Miller of the Bulwark. Before we get started, go hit the thumbs up button, hit the subscribe button, give us a follow, leave us 5 stars, and then when you're done, go over to thebulwark.com and sign up for all of the amazing free skiznit that we give away each and every day. We got Charlie Sykes' fantastic flagship podcast. Charlie writes a newsletter, Morning Shots, which he gives away for free. Literally every day. It's amazing. I don't know how he does this, writing both a 3,000 word newsletter and hosting an hour-long show every day. It's crazy.
It is amazing.
And then we've got good pieces. It's like we run an online magazine, a zine, as the kids used to call it. Do you remember that stuff, Tim?
I wasn't really into zines.
Anyway, go over to thebulwark.com and follow us up. And then sit down and buckle up your chin strap, because we're going to talk about how fantastic my Kevin is. Ladies and gentlemen, Speaker of the House Kevin McCarthy has actually given us the return to normal that we have been pining for 7 fucking years.
Kevin. All right. We're going to put this tape on a reel. Let's send it over to the Freedom Caucus, send it over to all of his big supporters at Fox News Primetime, and just let them know that the Bulwark is giving him 2 thumbs up. Great job, Kevin. Heck of a job.
Here. I want to be very, very careful here, because on the one hand, I would like Kevin McCarthy's attempt at normalcy to succeed. So I guess I should say that he's a MAGA grifter who hates America or something. And, in pundit accountability, when he won his speakership, I said, this fight is going to be what every single fight is over the course of his speakership. This is what the House Republican Caucus is. And instead, he's done an okay job. If you're a Democrat, you are not happy because he is not a Democrat. But on the other hand, if you're a Democrat who's been living in the world as we have known it for the last 7 years, you have to look at Kevin McCarthy and be like, okay, yeah, this could have been worse.
Is there anybody who argued that the Republicans might be better than you guys were thinking? That they might act more normally?
Doesn't ring a bell.
No?
Ross
no
Douthat.
one?
Ross
was it Ross? Was it Ross who did
Ross
that?
said that Kevin McCarthy was a return to normalcy. Credit where it's due.
Well, Ross always takes it too far. There's a difference between saying there's a return to normalcy or the sort of generally optimistic shadow Congress. These guys can get a few things done, and I think that I'm happy. I'm happy to see, the effects of this would have been catastrophic. And to be clear, at the time of this taping, it is not a completely done deal yet. We are listening to the terrorist, arsonist psychos of the Freedom Caucus. Did you see Chip Roy say yesterday that Bill Kristol likes this deal?
And Mitt Romney.
Bill
Kristol and Mitt Romney like this deal.
So it must be a terrible deal. But, the good old MAGA establishment. You got
My
Jim
favorite
Jordan,
part about that is just showing about, just really quick, some young MAGA reporter, like the Daily Caller reporter or something, was quoting Chip Roy, and it's like a 23-year-old, and they spelled it Bill Kristol like the hot sauce.
Yeah.
And I was like, this is what happens, Bill. Time comes for everyone, right? You're getting name checked by Chip Roy, but the embed doesn't know how to spell your name anymore.
I didn't know that guy from City Slickers was doing political commentary. Yeah.
Woke Bill Kristol. That's woke Bill Kristol to you now, Chip Roy.
So, Sarah, this is come into the water with me in praising my Kevin.
Just really quick before Sarah does that, I do want to say that I did give Sarah credit. Not only did I know that you were the pundit that accurately predicted that this would be normal, but I twittered a twit about that received hundreds of retweets. So I retweeted it. I'm just throwing flowers on you.
You were also right,
I'm
Sarah?
throwing social media
Ross,
flowers at your feet.
Back in the day?
I appreciated that. I also appreciated JVL's wife, who beloved by all of us, being like, oh, JVL would like a word, because JVL has been, his newsletters of late have been very on top of this. I don't think Shannon realized you were going back in the canon back to when we were in the early days of discussions about this.
I think that there were some deep doubts, some real reservations over whether Mike Kevin could actually pull together a coalition to get a vote, and whether Mitch McConnell could bring across 10 Republican senators, 9 now for various things. And me and JVL were very bearish on that, and Sarah, as is your wont, was rather bullish, and here we are. Gun deal, infrastructure. Now we've survived a completely unnecessary hostage taking that would have.
I'm ready to put him on Mount Rushmore, to be honest.
Wait, let me just finish this one thing though, which is that the reason that Kevin is being successful is in part because you have this MAGA establishment of also horrible people. Like, this is where it gets weird, right? And where I think our analysis, you can see where what we're struggling with, because Marjorie Taylor Greene, Thomas Massey, Jim Jordan, these are the people who are on Kevin's team about this. Right. These are the ones running out to defend Kevin on this debt limit deal. And so, people could be forgiven for thinking that Marjorie Taylor Greene not be particularly serious about keeping us from defaulting on our debt.
So, Sarah, this is what I want to ask you about. So this is a sort of Nixon going to China thing where Kevin could do this deal precisely because he's already out front on the Trump train, and he brought MTG into the caucus with him, and he has hugged her close, right? And this is a pretty canny thing, right? If he does not let anybody take a back seat or he does not take a back seat to anybody else in his love of Donald Trump and his desire of Donald Trump to be the next president of these United States, that then is what frees him up to be able to do this, even at a moment when Trump kind of wanted a default, right? I mean, Trump's own incentives diverged from McCarthy's incentives on this.
And
yeah, well, because, Trump wants the economy to be in shambles and for there to be general catastrophic failure. I don't know. I mean, can he? I guess. The problem is, right,
he is our Seneca, the greatest
I don't want to give him canny.
Well,
I'm not ready to go so far as canny. Okay.
Yeah, you can say. I'll ask this question back to you a slightly different way. Is it worth it for Kevin McCarthy to validate Marjorie Taylor Greene, to have created, to have gone so MAGA, validated Trump, validated everything he stands for, swallow all of it whole, to do things like make sure we don't default on the debt?
I mean, if the alternative is, if he doesn't do those things, then we do default on the debt, right? If that's the alternative, and I'm not sure that that's the case, but let's just pretend that that's what the choice is.
I'm not sure it's the case either, yeah.
But maybe it's a false choice, but let's pretend that that's the choice. Then it's absolutely worth him doing all of those things.
Well, then let me ask you, because you know who I make this argument about sometimes? Kirsten Sinema. Right? Like, I love Tim's face. We reflexively hate on a bunch of these people when...
I have a Kristen Sinema T-shirt. I don't reflexively hate on her. I wanted to like her, and she's acted very strange and inscrutably and weird, and not very productively at all. But maybe I'm wrong. Make the pitch.
The pitch is like she inserted herself into the debt conversation because she has the ability and credibility to talk to, Cornyn and a bunch of people on the right, and every time she seems to sort of abandon her team and cozy up to Republicans, it's really annoying. And yet, especially because it seems to validate what has been horrible, contemptible behavior on their part. And yet it does put her in a position in these sort of like tense negotiation times to talk to both sides in a way where there's not that many people who can bridge that divide.
I mean, if we're going to go giving Kirsten Sinema credit here for making this all work, then I'm sorry. I'm happy to give credit to Mike Kevin.
I'm not giving her credit. I'm asking about the theory, right? Do we forgive or allow people to cozy up and validate, normalize these terrible people in the service of negotiation?
I don't think she added anything for what she's done. Right?
Yeah. What does she?
Yeah.
Why doesn't Mark Kelly get credit? Why Kristen Sinema gives credit just because she likes the attention more than he does? I mean,
I guess
Mark
because I don't think Mark Kelly
things.
Is he trying to sit down with Republicans? Is he?
He's supporting these bills. He's trying to do all the right things. He does bipartisan stuff. Like
So
that
here-
isn't arson.
What I would say, Sarah, is I don't think that any of the stuff that Kristen Sinema did enhanced her ability to do what she has done on the debt stuff. I think she could have been exactly what she was, 24 months ago, and
But
still
but
have
it's
had
not
the
just
same
this.
effect.
This was like she was doing it in service of an immigration reform at one point. Like that is
I think
that
she
is
still
how
could have.
I think.
I don't think it gained her much in terms of ability to go and do that.
But we didn't think that about Kevin until we saw it like get put to the test, right?
Yeah, but he has a caucus to deliver, and she doesn't. Right? I mean, she's just one person. I would also like to give a little bit of this much credit to Joseph Robinette Biden, who I don't know, like he's just good at this stuff. Like he just nobody cares. Nobody cares. But I wrote this last week when everybody was like, "Oh, we're going to default. We're going to default." And I was like, "Hey, so if we don't default and he gets to a deal and he has told the progs who wanted to use the 14th Amendment to settle down because he's not going to go breaking their norms, and he hasn't tweeted about how he doesn't negotiate with Nazis and that he, my Kevin has a stupid face and who could ever want a man with a face like that, and he's a beta cuck, like he's just inviting Kevin McCarthy over to the White House to sit down and jawbone. And Joe Biden is a good president. I'm sorry, everybody. I know everybody wants to say, oh, he's terrible, he's dementia. He's a good president. Not the best president. He's not Lincoln, but he's been a pretty good president.
Did you see what else he did?
No.
The other thing he did as part of this deal that was really good, to your point about not only did he not do the Nazi thing, he didn't even, to his detriment in the liberal media, he didn't even make the case for the deal, right? And he was asked about this, like, why aren't you selling this harder? And his answer was, oh, what? You want me to run around and talk about how great of a deal I'm getting? You think that's going to help get the votes? You think that's going to help get the Republican votes? That's not a direct quote, but that's essentially the gist of what he said when asked about this in a press conference. It's like, that's a smart guy. Maybe he should write a book. Art of the Deal. It's a good title, I've heard. He's got a pretty good sense for this stuff. He's done a number of these things. I do think he deserves credit for this. And, the Democrats really did. There are two ways to look at it, right? In one sense, they got a pretty good deal in the sense they didn't really give up that much. I mean, like, we're not actually cutting, the spending is staying flat, right? The worst parts of the work requirement were all taken out, and now it's just able-bodied adults with no dependents, right? So, so they got a good deal in that sense. But in the other sense, they didn't get a good deal because they got nothing. I mean, my book editor, Eric Nelson, I'm going to steal this from him, so I'm going to shout this out. He tweeted, he's like, what are the Republicans who are complaining about my Kevin talking about when they say Kevin didn't get a good deal? It's like they got a car and Joe Biden got a stick. And now they want leather seats in the car. It's like Joe Biden, so
that's good.
You're right. There are two different ways to look at it, right? In the sense that Democrats didn't have to give up that much, but in another sense, they didn't get anything. It's not like the Republicans in good faith came to the table and said, "Hey, in exchange for cutting the budget, which we feel so passionately about because we're purists when it comes to budget responsibility, in exchange for that, we'll give you, a 21-year gun restriction for assault rifles, or we'll give you, we're going to fund some green stuff over here. Like we'll add, they got nothing. Like the Democrats got nothing out of this, but they avoided the default. They protected all of the stuff that Joe Biden passed in the first 2 years, which is significant, and everybody should be happy about this. I think.
Sarah, would
Great
you like
job,
to talk
Joe
about
and
how
Kevin.
pretty
Heck
okay
of a
Joe
job.
is?
One other thought on Kevin, really quick. Do you have an objection to the Joe comment before I have one other Kevin thought, Sarah?
No.
But one other Kevin thought that's a little frustrating is, have you ever seen the Twitter meme that is like about how Twitter's the only place where you can send a tweet that says "I like waffles" and somebody will respond to you and say, "What the fuck do you have against pancakes?" And the person's like, "That's another sentence. Actually, that's a separate sentence. I like waffles and I also like pancakes." And you do get that a lot. I notice on this Kevin thing. I noticed JVL, you got that in the comments on the Substack. Even our great listeners, very erudite subscribers. Most of the comments were very good. Yeah,
95% of our readers were like, nobody's more surprised than me.
That is correctly right. That is right. But you do notice this, and I noticed you got this a little bit, Sarah, on some of your comments about a different candidate we'll talk to in a bit. And it's and it's like these things can exist as two distinct sentences. Kevin acted responsibly this time in a way that kind of surprised me. Maybe didn't surprise Sarah, but surprised me in how responsibly he acted. And that does not absolve him of all his past sins. And, your Twitter feed does become a little onerous if every time you tweet, Kevin did something responsibly today, you also have to begin it with a rundown of all of the areas where he's failed the Democratic Republic over the past 10 years. It's kind of stipulated. But anyway, great job, everyone involved.
Let me just give JVL his due on Biden, because I do think that Biden, it's this is one of those things where it's really unfair to the person for whom you have the expectations of being a grown-up. No, not you.
Oh, sorry.
Right? Like, we expected Joe Biden to want to avoid a debt default. The reason that we're also happy about Kevin is because we were like, I don't know, maybe the lunatics own him and like he can't do this, right? And we're all pleasantly surprised.
Correct.
Here's the thing that, just to Tim's point about the framing of this, though, that I find befuddling on the parts of Republicans, is that, the way you do this is like you get some concessions. Like Joe Biden started from the position of absolutely no negotiations, right? Whether or not he ever intended to get into those negotiations, I don't know. But that's where he started. So Republicans feel like they're getting something, and they are. They're the only ones who got anything in this deal. So why they're not all running out there being like, we owned you, we got this, we win. And because Joe Biden is playing the card of like, I'll let them say whatever it takes to get this thing done. So like, and yet they're all like, we got owned by this. And it's like, who taught you PR? Like, what do you mean? You're going to run around now being like, we got hosed. This is a terrible deal. Like, Chip Roy, what is wrong with you, bro? Take the W.
Nancy Mace. We literally
Nancy
said
Mace.
We got owned by a guy who can't put on his pants. It's like, what are you did you read that before you clicked tweet? There's an insight here, though, that you are correct. Their PR is terrible, but there is a deeper insight about the Republican mind right now, right? Which is the grievance, being the victim is what moves people.
You only win by losing. You only win by losing.
You only win by right. Like
That's
that is a deep psychological rot that I don't know how to fix. About it's sometimes true about really active Democratic partisans too, but much less so. But like Republican partisans, like have to. In order to energize them, they have to feel like some bad, scary, maybe Jewish person like Bill Kristol screwed them over, right? And like that is how you energize people. Is that we need to fight this because we need to fight harder, we need to fight even harder, we need to fight, and that's the only way to rally around people because they don't want to take the W, which is very strange.
We had a piece on this on the website last week by Robert Trasinski, who said that losing is Trump's superpower for precisely this reason. Yeah, and that's a very deep point. I do have one little question. In the same way that the Bulwark audience was all able to look at Mike Kevin and say, "Oh yeah, hey, no, he did a good thing. Good for him. He governed." Am I wrong to say that there is no mirror image of that on the right? Like, I don't ever see a National Review Online piece saying like, hey, Joe Biden did this thing. It was pretty good. Yeah. Okay. He governed effectively. Good for him. Like, do we not ever get that? Like, does Biden...
Mike Kevin did it. While we're complimenting Mike Kevin.
Mike Kevin also said that.
He was asked about Joe Biden, and he said that he's a strong negotiator, and I don't have the exact quote in front of me.
Very smart, very tough.
Very smart and very tough.
Literally the two worst words you could use in order for Trump to trigger him. You don't want to say that Biden is smart because he's very, very touchy about his own intelligence. You don't want to say that Biden's tough because he thinks he's the toughest bastard in the world.
But I can't say that I've seen any of the writerly types or commentator types, or maybe I missed it. If you saw it out there, please send it through. I'd like to give credit where due, but I can't say that I've heard anybody say like, not even, and forget attaboy Joe Biden, not even like, turns out Joe Biden isn't quite as socialisty and communisty as maybe we worried he would be. As we worried he'd be. Right. That's kind of really what we're saying about Kevin, right? Not that like he's great. It's like he's not quite as irresponsible as we expected him to be. And I haven't seen that. Maybe I missed it.
And Sarah, do you ever hear that in focus groups? Like, do you ever hear... Again, maybe you're just not talking to like the leaners, but the people who don't like Biden, who aren't going to vote for him, But do you ever hear them say like, "Look, I don't even, not my guy." But not as bad as I'd feared. Is that a thing you ever get?
Not really. Not really. I've made this observation before, I think. And there is an absolute difference between the way Democrats talk about Republicans and Republicans talk about Democrats. And I don't know whether this is because when I'm talking to, like, especially, let's say, Democrats in Pennsylvania, most of their family are Republicans, right? They don't know Republicans. They're around Republicans all the time. And they're much more likely to both sympathize with certain elements of what the Republicans that they know feel, or even, like, try to understand them. Now, sometimes it's a condescending kind of understanding, like, who are these? Jonah Goldberg used to have this formulation, the conservatives in the mist. And it was really about how the media approached it, which is like, who are these people and why? But not with antagonism. Republicans hate Democrats. Like, they are not seeking to understand them. And I would say, like, the two-time Trump voters, not the swing voters as much, but generally, and part of that is, and it goes back to this, the grievance is one piece. The other piece is the, like, it's a nephew, or like it's related to the grievance of, like, we're always under attack, right? And because we're always under attack, we live in a foxhole together in our tribe. And so we hate the other side. And the other, so, like, and that doesn't mean that there's not lots of progressives that call Republicans Nazis. Real thing. Fascists all the time, everything. That is real. But you just hear a lot more Democrats have empathy for Republicans and try to understand them than not vice versa.
Yeah, I remember that in your focus groups leading up to 2020, where you had, again, like, liberal voters in Pennsylvania literally explaining why they thought their Republican friends were going to vote for Trump again. And it wasn't that, like, oh, they're evil racists. Like, I understand, man. Like, times are tough and the jobs have left the more rural areas. And, a guy like this comes along selling magic beans. Like, it's totally empathetic. Don't see a whole lot of that.
I will say the one thing
towards the left.
The one thing there is on the right is there's often, and let's take Ted Cruz as an example. Or even Klein, the guy who runs NRO. I saw both of them, Phil Klein. I saw both of them tweet related to sort of the LGBT stuff. So Ted Cruz was talking about Uganda and the law that they just passed that punishes homosexuality, and Ted Cruz tweeted against it. And Philip Klein was defending. I know.
Thank you.
Yes,
I'm just happy that Ted wants to let me live. That's great.
Yeah.
And let all the Ugandan Tims out there live.
Yeah,
Brave.
I mean, if you watched his back and
Brave.
forth with Jenna Ellis and some of the other ones, like, he doubled down on it. He pushed back. And, like, Philip Klein was basically arguing, also, again, taking a lot of heat from the right on it, that if parents want to buy their kids, like, a rainbow shirt, that is not, like, grooming. Like, they're not marketing it to children. They're marketing it to parents who are showing support for gay people or are gay. Like, I mean, I don't think my kids have any rainbow stuff, but, like, I could see, I'm sure people I know have their kids have rainbow stuff. So anyway, yeah, you have a girl.
She's got
so
lots of
let
rainbow
me read for you guys the tweet. Can I do that? Is that all right?
stuff. The Ted Cruz tweet?
No, the response to Ted Cruz from Pastor Tom Ascol, rhymes with asshole, who responded, "Tell it to God, Ted." And then he quoted Leviticus 20:13. "If a man lies with a male as with a woman, both of them have committed an abomination. They shall surely be put to death. Their blood is upon him." Now we go back to Pastor Tom. Was this law God gave to his old covenant people, quote, horrific and wrong? Which was the words Ted Cruz used to describe the Nigerian law. Ugandan law. So that is the quote from the pastor who helped launch Ron DeSantis' campaign.
JVL has the bit where he, says that we hold, Republican politicians to the same standard that we do random liberal tweeters. This is not
he's
just
the pastor of Grace Baptist.
Yeah, he did the invocation at DeSantis's inauguration. He did the invocation, and he's been leading the effort to like recruit evangelical pastors for DeSantis. The Ted Cruz tweet. It's just I want to get to Tom, but just worth settling for a second on the fact that Ted Cruz's tweet was basically gay people should be allowed to live. Like that was the extent of his position, and that all civilized nations should join together in believing that gay people should be allowed to live, which is okay, good. I mean, kind of the bare minimum, but he did get this
like the 24 pieces of flair.
Like
gay people.
Yeah, exactly. Like one piece of flair. Great job. We can live. Anything else? Like, can we do it? How about can we mate? For another day. But he got a lot of pushback about this, which does show why he deserves one cheer for saying it. I think it speaks to the nature of how the new blue check Twitter mafia is that Ted Cruz would come under fire for such a position. But the Askell tweet I think is very important, because again, it speaks to the broader issues with DeSantis, both on policy and on his electability case, right? And it speaks to the changing mores of the party. And obviously, there have been crazy pastors that supported Republican candidates for as old as time. But there is a real difference. I mean, John McCain in 2008 did not want to Pastor Jeffress, said he would not, campaign with him because of his, comments. I believe it was about Jews, but also gays in that campaign. I mean, to have a person like this front and center, that Askell, if you don't, for people who don't know, I just did a little bit of research on this, was talking briefly to some of our friends in this world. He made a challenge for the Southern Baptist Convention, some leadership role. I forget what the title of the role was, but it was like the Byron Donalds challenge against Kevin McCarthy equivalent. Like it was, it's like the Southern Baptist Convention, and he was going at the leader from the right, talking about all the lib cucks in the midst and how
this isn't Westboro Baptist. It's not like 20 cranks with a TV camera.
No, it's the Southern Baptist Convention, right? And he ends up getting like 30% in this vote of pastors. So like this is not a nobody. Like this is somebody that is influential. He's recruiting people to move them off of Trump to DeSantis, and he's literally out there taking the position that gays should be put to death. Like that's not a misrepresentation. They shall surely be put to death. That was the law God gave his covenant people. Can he go back on the stage with DeSantis? Will he? I think probably, right? And I think that speaks to obviously the horrific policy agenda of Ron DeSantis, which I want to talk about a little bit, but his political weakness. If he's going to go like he did this week and try to make the contrast with Trump be, I'm electable, I can win, I'm a guy who can win. It's like, really? You're carrying a lot of baggage.
Sarah?
I know it was like not on our list of topics. I guess this reverend person. Yeah. But how do we think Ron DeSantis's rollout is going? Because he has been, there was a really good Semaphore article. He's out there in Iowa. He's stumping. I saw conflicting reports about the size of his crowds. They were either enormous or a little small, depending on which reporter was taking a picture from which angle. But one of the things he is attacking Trump now to reporters. So when he's talking to voters, now to be fair, the voters aren't necessarily asking him about Trump. The reporters are asking him lots of questions about Trump. But he has started to kind of take some bigger swings to the media, and I think and he's been doing this press blitz, so he's everywhere. I gotta say, in like a conventional way, it's like been a pretty good rollout. Raised a ton of money, over $8 million. But in terms of like watching him and whether or not he has any he's pretty boring. Like for as spicy as it is to be palling around with the like gay people should die folks, and his we're we're going to put the woke agenda in the dustbin of history. Like, I've been listening to him do his thing. Does it have it? I find it kind of, it still sounds politician-y. And like, it is not the words of a John McCain or Mitt Romney, and yet it manages to sound not that interesting.
Can I test drive an idea for you, Sarah? And
Sure.
I'm thinking about writing something, and I want to hear both of your take on this. I agree with that. I don't want to. The reason why I don't want the DeSantis rollout to be on the agenda is I want to see. We're now deep enough into it that we're going to see a round of polls this week, and I want to. See,
We are,
and I expect it'll get a little bump. The question is, does it get a little bump or a real bump?
A real bump.
And I think
the Monmouth numbers yesterday were brutal.
But
that was before his announcement. They were taking
mostly
it was
before.
It was
one
before
day
his
after.
announcement. But the most brutal number in that was who did Republicans think was the best candidate to beat Biden?
Yeah.
And on that count it was Trump 65, and I want to say DeSantis 25 or something like that.
I got to tell you, I
Sebastian
think
can
that
pull up.
CNN town hall did a lot for Trump's sense of electability.
Why wouldn't it, right? He looked tough. He looked engaged. Yeah.
All right, what's your theory, Tim? Test drive.
I just want to test drive something that's more on the merits of what he's been saying. So I've been listening to his all of his interviews, not all, but I've been listening to as many as I could. The ones where it seems like he was contrasting with Trump. I don't need to hear the Florida's where woke goes to die bit again. But his contrast with Trump, this makes sense why he would do this strategically. But all are they're either electability or from the MAGA right. And I use that word carefully, MAGA right, not the true con right, not like we need to go back to Social Security reform and cutting taxes. It's all been stuff like, he's been willing to go there, like Trump wouldn't. These are all paraphrases of what he's saying, but he's been willing to go there on the migrant. Sending migrants from Texas to Massachusetts. He says that Trump was moderating on the abortion thing, that he was willing to go there all the way to 6 weeks on abortion. Like there are these series of issues, obviously on Fauci and the CDC and how Trump cared a little bit too much about how people were dying during COVID, and he keeps going at Trump from that vantage point. And like DeSantis's supporters, like the one way to make them just bristle with, get gleefully performatively upset is for anybody to suggest that Donald Trump, Ron DeSantis could be worse than Donald Trump or more extreme than Donald Trump. And I don't want to relitigate that argument here. But what I do want to say is, isn't it interesting that Ron DeSantis's argument is basically that he's more MAGA than Donald Trump, right? Like, do we not have to take him at his word on this? Am I being too? Is this too MSNBC of a take
Didn't one of
here?
our writers literally say, make the case last week that like, no, you got to understand, he doesn't mean any of this, right? Wasn't Jim Garrity or something? I don't know. It was somebody somewhere. Maybe
is that not crazy? Again, it doesn't change my personal view. I don't want to relitigate why we think the Trump third term nightmare, blah blah blah. And I'll do a big wind up if I write this. But like Ron DeSantis's case is that he is going to be more.
All right, so let me try to take
Trump,
that.
right?
Let me see. So here's the thing, though. It depends on what he's trying to be more MAGA on, whether or not it's like there's the really, really dangerous aspects of MAGA, like the overturning of an election, which DeSantis does not seem to be embracing, right? He's not running on election denialism platform. He's not running on a we don't respect elections platform.
He wouldn't, though. He's not disavowing any of that
That's
stuff.
true.
He's just not running on it.
That's true. Okay, and then also, so like one of the things that I think where he tried to sort of run to Trump's, not necessarily right, but like the same is on Ukraine, right? But he got pushed around, and he walked that back. And so like the things that and like the 6-week abortion is not quite MAGA. Are you like,
That's a
right?
good
Like
point.
the abortion issue is more the social conservatives. It's like the MAGAs don't care about the social issues and probably don't actually love the 6-week abortion ban. There's a reason Trump can get away with taking a more moderate position on abortion is because voters have always kind of liked that about him. And especially like the big Trumper people, they're not big social conservatives. They don't like love Mike Pence. So look, I am a avowed, like, do not, this whole Ron DeSantis is scarier than, and also like when people do the Ron DeSantis is scarier. I know you don't want to litigate it, but I did get, I like, David Jolly said this, and our friend Molly Jong Fast said this on the stage when we were, and I just cannot take this argument. And a lot of times when they are talking about it, they bring up the way that he's going after gay people. And I think that he is certainly worse than Trump on these social issues. But this was actually Trump. I was the board chair of Log Cabin Republican when Trump came along, and one of the conundrums was that Trump was the most pro-gay Republican that had ever run. He is waving around a rainbow flag. And so I think Ron DeSantis, like the things that are dangerous about Trump is that Trump is genuinely a wannabe authoritarian. Ron DeSantis is a liberal and wants to do liberal things. And like his rhetoric right now of like, we're going to defeat leftism, we're going to end leftism, as though like a whole set of ideas get ended, not we're going to debate, whatever. So he's a liberal guy.
Not we're going to persuade either.
But I don't.
We're just
gonna destroy.
Can I just let me just lob two. I don't necessarily disagree with all that. So we're fine tuning. I'm doing this live.
Yeah, same.
I get it. This is a little bit of a slate pitch of an article, but like what here is, it is not a slate advice column of an article, which they're really doing some good work over there in the advice column section. The other things that he hit Trump on, right? So this goes to your authoritarian question. Not being tough enough on Disney. Right? That's the other thing. I was willing to go there and attack a private company for doing unclear exactly what. I'm still begging for every reporter I talk to who actually gets to talk to DeSantis, I'm begging them to ask him to tell us, I want to know the specific scene of the Disney movie that was too sexualized for him. He uses this word every time, sexualizing kids. I want to know the specific scene that triggered him. But anyway,
Toy Story 2, and it's when Bo Peep goes side-eye like this at Woody. Woody? Yeah, you think that name was an accident?
No, it certainly wasn't. Here's the other one. I'm just pulling up this Semaphore article. Why did Trump not remain true to America First principle and consider giving amnesty for dreamers? Amnesty for dreamers. I mean, the dreamers thing's been going on for 30 years now. Like, there's some dreamers who are 40, I think, who have been in this country since they were 8. Like, so again, okay, so again, this is his pitch, no? Like, his pitch is that I'm more America First than Trump. So shouldn't he have to answer for that?
But answer in what way? In that we accuse him of being more dangerous? Like, that's...
No, dangerous is not the word. I'm just saying that, like, everybody in the DeSantis camp bristles if you're like, oh, how about extreme? Maybe extreme than dangerous. Like, he's saying I'm more extreme. He's saying Trump is more reasonable. He doesn't say that word reasonable, but if your argument is, hey, Trump was willing to listen to Fauci, and Trump is willing to work behind the scenes with these woke corporations like Disney, and Trump is willing to let dreamers who were brought here as children, and I wouldn't do any of those things. I'd go after the companies. I'd fuck over the dreamers.
Trump helped those vaccine companies with his Operation Warp Speed.
I mean, I know that DeSantis would have more normal people around him. There are all these other arguments, but is it not true that that's his case against Trump?
It is his case, I think. Right, that is his argument. The problem is that it's simultaneously his argument is also I'm more electable, and as he keeps doing this, he becomes less electable. Right, there is a reason that during the Democratic primaries in 2020. When candidates were asked on stage, raise your hand if you're in favor of single payer health, and everybody except like Biden and Mayor Pete, I think, said yes, and they didn't because they're like, no, this will get hung around my neck in a general election, right? Same thing with decriminalizing the border, right?
Yeah.
Like all of these things that DeSantis says he's for, he would have to answer, and the three of us, or at least two of us, have been saying for a while now that it's not clear that DeSantis really is more electable than Trump anymore. And with each passing week, I think actually that another reason to favor DeSantis is because I think that he might be more beatable by Biden. like I don't know. You don't think so, Sarah?
No way.
You don't think he's compromised on policy? Because it could just
I
be
think
the
he's
age
compromised.
thing.
I think he's
the age
compromised.
thing could just
but
overcome everything, right? The 40-year difference could just swamp
I think,
everything.
and also like DeSantis will change these positions. He just will.
Can you though? No, I'm sure he'll change
Yeah.
it, but does it succeed? Right? I mean, as a Republican, as a Democrat, you couldn't have run for saying you're in favor of single payer and then run away from that.
The abortion stuff is going to be tough for him. He can't
Yeah.
run away from abortion. Although he could come out and be like, my federal policy will be 15 weeks. Like he could be like, in Florida, 6 weeks were right for us, but federal policy, I'll push for 15 weeks with exceptions for rape, incest, life of the mother. Look, Ron DeSantis knows, as I think most people do, like you don't get to run a general election unless you can win a primary. And so they've got a theory of the case. I agree with Tim that he is running to the right of Trump. That is it. The question is like the things that he is running to the right on Trump, is like Trump didn't build the wall, like he wasn't as tough on immigration as I'll be. He's trying to take the parts of Trump that got noticed and were popular and like put them on steroids. He is not the scariest parts of Trump were things like Muslim ban, were things like overturning an election, were appointing people who would break the law. It was his cozying up to dictators, his interest in undoing the world order and, getting rid of NATO. Like those are the reasons to me that Trump is. And so I just like, but I take your point though, Tim.
My point is like you can't run to the right of Trump and then make fun. And then when we notice that, say, "Oh, you're a hypocrite." It's like what? You can do that. You're full of shit though. Like you can't run to the right of Trump and then get mad at people for noticing. I guess that's my point.
Well, that is it. I mean, there is an expectation because he's running against Trump that all of us will know that he's not serious. Like we're supposed to take him. What is it?
Seriously, not literally.
Seriously, not literally, right? And everybody at NRO expects us to be like, he doesn't mean that, and you know it, and play along, you jerks.
I want to make one prediction here, though, and this is based on his launch night, where he said, I make a promise to you that if I'm your nominee, I will, at noon on January 20th of 2025, I will be sworn in because I will do whatever it takes. I think that's coded language for the problem with the coup was that it didn't work. And I think that eventually he's going to get there to make it. He may not ever say it fully outright, but I think he's going to get, at some point, be pushed into that position. As a position.
This is a nice segue into the Tara Reade section of the podcast.
So I think that's
he's already said he did that weasel worded kind of like I'm going to pardon the insurrectionists. Like he'll flirt with it. Trump's an entrepreneur, an authoritarian entrepreneur. He's like, can I get away with this? Can I do this? And DeSantis just does have a real sense of the he has a different set of boundaries. Still a liberal. I'm not defending DeSantis.
Yeah.
This is where it is annoying. It's like at no point do I want to defend him. I think
among friends here. We understand.
People lose the plot when they get really excited to be like, as though it's like a great take. No. DeSantis is more dangerous because he'll know what he's doing. Like, well, that's not how this works.
I agree with that, but you can also agree with that statement about Trump's unique danger while also noticing what DeSantis has been doing the last 2 weeks, which is pretty fucking far out there. Like, would have been really far out there in the 2012 primary lineup. He would have been out there with the Herman Cain and Michelle Bachmans of the world.
So this is really true.
He's not running as Tim Pawlenty.
One thing that's funny about DeSantis to me is that if this version of DeSantis, which you don't get this version of DeSantis without Trump happening, but let's say Trump hadn't happened and you just had this version of DeSantis, I always think like, oh, well, I would leave the Republican Party over this guy. Like, I wouldn't have, right? I would have been out. I would have had the same reaction to him. It would have been over for me. But it's because Trump came before him that he is like this, that voters crave this, and that we now grade on this curve of like, well, this horrible person who's deeply illiberal and cynical is still preferable to the guy who set the precedent for all this stuff.
Cool. Sarah wants JBL. Sarah wants to do Chris Christie. But I have no
Just
Chris
real
Christie.
quick.
Yeah, no,
So
I
let her
totally.
do
I
it.
want to do Chris Christie. Sarah, do it. Go.
So Chris Christie is apparently going to get in this race, guys. He's going to get in this race on Tuesday of next week.
Wow.
Guess where he's getting in?
Where?
New Hampshire. Guess what happened last time he was in New Hampshire?
Oh, he finished second or first?
He basically threw the punch that guaranteed Donald Trump was going to be the
That's
Republican
right.
nominee.
He sure did. He sure did.
And did he endorse
Okay.
him? No, maybe, I think he was back in New Jersey by the time he endorsed him. I think he did a couple days on the beach.
Yeah, no, this was where he took Marco Rubio, right? He's just
Before
I
he
was
finished
there.
fifth. Sebastian, you can effort that. Either
Seventh,
fifth
I
or
think.
seventh. Yes. The great Trump slayer,
okay, I'm
Chris
going with
Christie, who finished out of the top 4 at least in New Hampshire. This guy's cooking with gas. Go
I
ahead,
just want to
Sarah.
give you my one take on Christie, which is, look, if this guy's going to get in the race, delusionally, and he's going to just throw haymakers at Trump the whole time. Oh, sixth.
Sick. Ding, ding, ding. Sarah is always
Good
right.
job, Sarah.
So, if he's going to get in, he's going to like actually try to. I believe in doing your own sort of karmic, like recompense, right? So, like if he's
Penance,
gonna
Catholic.
go
It's
back,
the Catholic idea.
yeah, if he goes back to New
I was
Hampshire
going to let
and
you
says,
do that, Tim.
and he says, you know what? I screwed this up last time, which he has. I think he's said, right? I think he has. I think he understands he did a bad thing, and if he wants to go and try to make good on that by just leveling haymakers at Trump all day long, I am okay with that. I will say though, in terms of when we ask about these candidates in the focus groups, the only person I'm not sure who they hate more, Chris Christie or Mike Pence, but they hate them both a lot. Like Chris Christie has no constituency. There are no voters. And all he has done is crowd this field of also-rans with Nikki Haley, a little less so Tim Scott, but like this crowd, Asa, he will fill that out nicely. And they can all split the 10% of the party that the real
At least
Trump.
Asa will do it with dignity.
That's true. Asa is doing it with dignity.
All right, so here's my question for you both. If he makes it to New Hampshire,
Like to
can
announce?
Christie finish better than 6th again? So he finished 6th last time. Let me tell you who I think is in front of him. Trump, DeSantis, Vivek, Tim Scott, and Nikki Haley. Christie then has to beat both Pence and Asa in order to hold on to his 6th place finish. What do we think of those odds?
I think he could. I'm just going to really quick say that Chris Christie's getting in this race for attention. I don't like giving it to him. And if he starts throwing haymakers at Trump, I will praise him. In the meantime, I'm just not going to talk about him. I think it's equally likely that he throws haymakers around DeSantis. I will say if he runs through the tape, there's something, New Hampshire is particularly, I don't think Christie could finish higher than 6th. Any other state. But, John Huntsman finished 3rd in New Hampshire. If there's no Democratic primary, Democratic-leaning folks can cross over. Christie's kind of a more natural fit for Democratic-leaving crossovers than Asa, despite the fact that Asa has acted more honorably. If you're that, he's a little bit more socially, maybe not. I don't know. We could do a focus group of Dem leaners in New Hampshire who might cross over and see what they think. Sarah, if we could find 10 of them, but so I do think that he could get in the high single digits. And get into John Huntsman territory when we finished a respectable 3rd in 2012, just in New Hampshire. I don't see any path to him above 8th in any of the other states.
I think more likely that he finishes in 8th place than 5th place. Couldn't happen to a nicer fellow. All right, so we got to talk about Tara Reade.
Do we have to?
Not American Pie and Big Lebowski Tara Reade, but the
Love that Tara Reade.
Biden.
Really? It's not surprising.
Wow, we can do a whole show on that. Her Bunny Lebowski is a tremendously great character.
Really?
That was a heck of a
Classic.
performance. So she is a resident of Russia because I guess this is the time to move to Russia. Like Russia has
It's
launched
nice
the war
this
of
time of
aggression.
year.
No, I just mean like more broadly, right?
No,
This
I
isn't
understood what you
even
meant.
like Snowden moving when we were only in like a mild Cold War with Russia. I mean, Russia has become an international pariah. Actual Russians are fleeing Russia as fast as they can get out. It has moved to a wartime footing with conscription and mass mobilization, crippling sanctions. And that is what has led this insane woman who accused Joe Biden of raping her to move to Russia because she said that if she stayed in America, she would be hunted down and killed. Was that right?
Yeah. She felt
Seems
unsafe.
unlikely.
I would like to
The
say
deep state.
that this is one of those moments where when this obviously insane woman accused Joe Biden of raping her, the liberal mainstream media listened and did some investigating. And they didn't run full headlong into it like, oh, I gotta check this out. But it wasn't just like dismissed and waved away. This is another example in which the mainstream media basically did its job. Right? I mean, she was heard. Everybody, listened, looked into it, and Joe Biden responded to it.
I'm going to go even further. Not only did the mainstream media do its job, I think that some attaboys are due to the resistant libs on Twitter who saw Russia around every corner and were maybe wrong. Maybe we're seeing ghosts a couple of times during the Trump years, but there was a lot of buzz that Tara, when this was happening, like she had done stuff with RT and that, might have had a Russian handler. And anytime somebody mentions that, obviously the Russiagate crowd, throws their hands, say, oh, the liberals are obsessed with this. Here, it was true. Russia, it is just another friendly reminder that Russia is not a all-powerful boogeyman. They didn't do everything they've ever been accused of, but they have been continuously trying to interfere in our politics in favor of Donald Trump and against Donald Trump's opponents.
Oh, in favor of Donald Trump.
In favor of Donald Trump
geez.
and against Donald Trump's opponents. And this was one example of that. And I guess it was Maria Butina who helped handle her.
Who the Russian hoax people all insisted was absolutely innocent.
Yeah, right. She was embedded in the NRA. You know who else Tara met with recently? Your friend Matt Gaetz. I believe Marjorie Taylor Greene was with them. So it is yet another example of the Russians easily infiltrating influential Republican offices and interest groups in service to Donald Trump. And so anyway, that is something that happened. It's nice to know that it happened. And I wish Tara well. I think that, Erstük is really beautiful in November. 9 months of winter, 3 months of work camps, I think will be really nice on her. Or maybe they'll treat her better than that and she can have a nice, little 1-bedroom apartment somewhere on the outskirts of Moscow where she doesn't speak the language. And I'm sure that it's going to be a very fulfilling life for her.
Sarah?
Comrade.
Speaking of things I don't want to talk about, that I don't want to have an opinion about. I don't know. You know what? This woman came out. I remember when we gave it a hard look. I remember her story. It was it made no sense from where she said it happened was not in the rotunda exactly, but in the hallways and
in a corridor. There was a little secret nook inside, in the corridor of the
and every reporter
Congress.
or anybody or member of Congress was like, "That's not a thing that could happen." And then I forgot about her. And you know what? I was perfectly happy to have forgotten about her. I hope she lives the rest of her life in Russia. I think the only point that's worth really pushing is the one that Tim made about the fact that Russia is always with us. They are here. They are trying to mess with us. And she was a product of that. And, that made a difference. And it created a narrative, right? There was a narrative about Biden that the right was really trying to push of like the hair sniffing.
Oh yeah, he's a
right?
predator.
And, like,
remember, it's all projection, right? Everything's always projection.
Yeah. They took every hug he gave anybody as a sexual assault attempt, and they brought her in to feed that narrative.
This is the other thing that's coming. The other narrative serving is my Biden kill list article. I wrote it. The Biden kill list is coming. That's like it is. These are all real things that are happening in the right wing media. That it's important to understand that there are people out there that think that the deep state literally could target Biden enemies.
All right, so Sarah, you didn't want to have an opinion on this, so I will do my impersonation of your opinion, which is sympathy and charity and well wishes for a woman who sure seems mentally ill, and that if you were a Cold War type
sympathy
person,
and charity for for a person that tried to give us a Donald Trump autocracy and has now defected to Russia, where they are invading a foreign country. No sympathy and charity for Tara Reade. I hope Tara Reade goes to Siberia. I hope she gets sent to Siberia.
These stories don't end well typically, and the history of defectors, even defectors who are like of sound mind and sound body, don't wind up happy in their lives once they are over behind the Iron Curtain, even though it's not really the Iron Curtain anymore.
Defect.
And I agree.
Choices,
but again, choice. Is being mentally ill like what are your real choices, right? I mean, there is a rationality, and it is not clear to me that this woman's choices are the same as Eric Snowden's choices. And she seems like a very sick person. So, and I'm trying to give the best. I'm trying to be Sarah. Look at me being a friend to humanity and thinking of the looking for the best in people. You know what, Tim? I want to judge people by their best moments, not their worst moments.
What was Tara Reade's best moment so far?
I'm sure she was nice to her cats or something.
She definitely has cats. That's true.
All right, guys, long show, but a pretty good show. Before we get out of here, go hit our button, hit the subscribe. We're getting a lot more subscribers on YouTube, and the downloads are growing, and the show is really going gangbusters. So help us out, please. Go leave some more reviews, share it with some friends, hang out in the comments. Tim and I have been popping by and bopping around in the comments every once in a while on YouTube. And then,
I don't know how to do
God
that.
forbid, if you're not signed up for all the free stuff that we give away at
Shame
thebulwark.com,
on you.
go do that. Just get it. Look, if somebody's handing out free candy from a shady van on the corner, would you not take that free candy?
Of course,
That's what we're doing. Go take our free candy from our gypsy ice cream truck. All right.
See you guys later. Go
Bye.
Nuggets.
Bye.